gives a specific...
To start off, they are talking about
3GC684, correct?
Karen Reed's Lexus taillight.
And so, from the analysis of the swab or the profile that was obtained from the swab from the taillight, what, if anything, was that compared to?
John O'Keefe, standard.
And what, if any, opinions or conclusions did you come from as far as the comparative analysis between the swab from the taillight from that vehicle and the profile from Mr. O'Keefe?
The DNA profile was interpreted as a three-person mixture, including male DNA. File from this item is at least 510 non-alien times more likely if it originated from John O'Keefe and 2 unknown individuals than if it originated from 3 unknown, unrelated individuals, and this provides support for an inclusion.
Huh. 3 people's DNA on the taillight, and they only tested it against John O'Keefe's. That's kind of weird. It's kind of weird that 2 other people touched it.
Comparative analysis consistent with the DNA profile of Mr. O'Keefe. There were also 2 unknown contributors. Is that correct?
Correct.
Now, with regard to that, are you familiar with that item or the profile from that item being submitted along with some other samples to an outside vendor called Bodie Technology?
Correct. That is a sample from exterior of broken drinking glass.
And with reference, were you able to generate a DNA profile from the swab or the sampling from that item?
Yes.
And what, if any, comparison were you able to do in regard to the DNA profile of Mr. O'Keefe?
Yes, so the sample was interpreted as a mixture of 3 contributors, and the DNA profile for this item is at least 530 non-alien times more likely if it originated from John O'Keefe and 2 unknown individuals than if it originated from 3 unknown, unrelated individuals, and this provides support for an inclusion.
Once again, 3 people's DNA on the cocktail glass, but they didn't think to test anybody in the house. That seems like it was by design. It seems like once they found that out, they would definitely test other people.
And so the sample from the exterior of the broken drinking glass is at least 530 non-alien times more likely if it originated from John O'Keefe, correct?
Correct.
Associated with that item.
That is a sample from stain A on upper right leg of jeans.
And were you able to generate a DNA profile from the sample from what's labeled as stain A on the upper right leg of Mr. O'Keefe's jeans?
I was.
And what, if any, comparison were you able to do with relation to that profile from that sample to Mr. O'Keefe's DNA profile?
Yes, so the DNA profile was interpreted as a mixture of 3 contributors, including male DNA. Contributor 1 was suitable for comparison, and due to limited information, contributors 2 and 3 were not suitable for comparisons. And the DNA profile from this item is at least 570 non-alien times more likely if it originated from John O'Keefe and 2 unknown individuals than if it originated from 3 unknown individuals. And this provides support for an inclusion.
And so from your comparative analysis, you came to the opinion or conclusion that the sample from the upper right leg of Mr. O'Keefe's jeans was 570 non-alien times more likely than it originated from Mr. O'Keefe, correct?
But let's completely gloss over the fact that other people's DNA is on the man's jeans. That's weird.
Could you rephrase that?
With respect to your comparative analysis of the profile from the sample from stain A on the upper right leg of Mr. O'Keefe's jeans, your opinion is that it was at least 570 non-alien times more likely that it originated from John O'Keefe, correct?
From then.
Sorry. But let's forget the fact that 2 other individuals' DNA is on it.
So the DNA profile from this item is at least 570 non-alien times more likely if it originated from John O'Keefe and 2 unknown individuals than if it originated from 3 unknown, unrelated individuals, and this provides support for an inclusion.
And Mr. O'Keefe's DNA profile.
So the DNA profile is a mixture of at least 2 contributors, including male DNA. Contributor 1 is suitable for comparison, and due to limited information, contributor 2 is not suitable for comparison, and this provides support for an inclusion.
And sir, if I could turn your attention to item 7-1.6.1. And what is the description for that item?
That is sample from stain E on upper right leg of jeans.
Were you able to also generate a DNA profile from that sample?
Yes.
And conduct a comparative analysis between the DNA profile from that sample and the DNA profile from Mr. O'Keefe?
Yes.
And opinions or findings did you have in regard to that comparative analysis?
Yeah, so the DNA profile was interpreted as a mixture of two contributors, including male DNA. Contributor 1 is suitable for comparison, and due to limited information, contributor 2 is not suitable for comparison.
And what is the description for that item?
That is sample from unstained areas of exterior of genes.
And were you able to generate a DNA profile from that sample?
Yes. Yes.
And what, if anything, were your findings in regard to that comparative analysis?
Yep, the DNA profile was interpreted as a mixture of 4 contributors, including male DNA. The DNA profile from this item is at least 553 septillion times more likely if it originated from John O'Keefe and 3 unknown individuals than if it originated from 4 unknown, unrelated individuals.
So 3 other people's DNA is on the pants, but we don't have anybody else's samples.
These are samples taken from a gray long sleeve shirt, is that correct?
Correct.
Now, with regard to the gray long sleeve shirt, where are the areas on the shirt where those swabbings were taken?
The right sleeve, the center front, the back left, the back right, and the back bottom of right.
And were you able to generate DNA profiles from each of those items?
I was.
And were you then able to do a comparative analysis between the DNA profile from each of those items with relation to the DNA profile from Mr. O'Keefe?
I was.
And with regard to the gray long sleeve t-shirt and the fingernail clippings of, they were taken from both the right and left hands of Mr. O'Keefe, is that correct?
Correct.
Attention to item 7-18.4.1, you're familiar with that item?
Yes.
And what is the description associated with that item?
Sample from stained C on top front gray long sleeve shirt.
And were you able to generate a DNA profile with respect to that item?
Yes.
And were you able to then do a comparative analysis between that DNA profile from that item and the DNA profile of Mr. O'Keefe?
Yes, I was.
And what, if any, conclusions did you come to with regard to that?
The male DNA profile was interpreted as originating from a single contributor. The DNA profile from this item is at least 58 octillion times more likely if it originated from John O'Keefe than if it originated from an unknown, unrelated individual. This provides support for an inclusion.
Item 7-18.14.1, you familiar with that item?
Yes.
And what is the description associated with that item, sir?
A sample from stain L on back bottom right of gray long sleeve shirt.
And were you able to generate a DNA profile from that, sample from that item as well?
Yes, I was.
And what, if anything, were your findings in relation to that?
So the DNA profile was interpreted as a mixture of 2 contributors, including male DNA. The DNA profile from this item is at least 1 decillion times more likely if it originated from John O'Keefe and an unknown individual than if it originated from 2 unknown, unrelated individuals. This provides support for an inclusion.
Seems like a very weird spot to have more than just John's DNA.
And sir, I'm going to ask you, or draw your attention to item 7-18.17.1. Are you familiar with that item?
Yes. Sample from unstained areas of exterior of gray long sleeve shirt.
And were you able to also generate a DNA profile from that sample?
Yes,
Profile from that sample and the profile from Mr. O'Keefe?
I was.
And what, if any, conclusions did you come to with reference to that comparative analysis?
The DNA profile was interpreted as a mixture of 2 contributors, including male DNA. Contributor 1 is suitable for comparison, and due to limited information, contributor 2 is not suitable for comparison. The DNA profile from this item is at least 960 non-million times more likely if it originated from John O'Keefe and an unknown individual than if it originated from 2 unknown, unrelated individuals. This provides support for an inclusion.
About item 7-3.1. That's a sample from the right instep of Mr. O'Keefe's sneaker, is that correct?
Yep.
And so, sir, with reference to that, what, if any, there's an indication as far as the mixture not being suitable for comparison due to the quality of the profile, correct?
Correct. It was a mixture of at least 5 contributors.
5 contributors. That seems like an awful lot. All of this DNA, you would think they would want to know if someone else was involved. But no, not in this case.
Yes.
And can you explain to the jury what that? And so from that, as far as not suitable for comparison, can you explain to the jury what that means?
Yes, so during our validations, we've only validated mixtures up to 4 contributors because we've determined that once you get more than 4, like at least 5 contributors into a mixture, it becomes too complex to be able to make any reliable comparisons to that mixture.